can be a blessed time for families and communities to unite,
to share meals and prayers in their home.
It's time to reflect upon the bounties you are blessed with,
so we can remember those who do not have all the luxuries in life.
They do not have proper suhoor meals ready available each day, or a loving father who calls them for the iftar meal after prayer. This Ramadan, let's share our blessings by giving an iftar meal to those in need, especially the orphans.
Provide a food basket for their family for around a week.
Or better yet, sponsor an orphan. To help build a strong community. And to help put a smile on orphans' faces.
When an orphan cries, it's like their tears fall in the hands of Allah.
Let's make sure this Ramadan, no orphan sheds a tear.
Allah, Allah, Allah,
Allah.
Allah.
Allah fi alaykum.
Allah alaykum.
Orphan children are already suffering from loss. Sadly, many also face a life in poverty. When you sponsor a child, you're not only lifting them out of poverty, but also giving them a chance to fulfill their potential and rebuild their life despite their loss and poverty. There is a fixed minimum standard amount given to every child with 0% taken from your donation for administrative fees. The guardian of the child receives this financial support on a monthly basis and spends it on the child's basic needs. Alongside the financial aid you are providing the child, Al-Ayn monitors the child on a regular basis, ensuring they are receiving the care that they need. Al-Ayn also gives children access to free medical and educational care, mental health support, housing support and much more. Once the child begins to transition into adulthood, the support continues through extra financial support through university and beyond. For other orphaned youth, vocational opportunities are also provided. Giving them a brighter future despite their difficult past. Help us reach more orphan children in poverty today.
Sadaqah Jariyah is continual charity that addresses urgent needs today whilst also transforming lives for years to come. Due to the impact of consecutive wars and instability, many orphan children are suffering from unsafe housing, lack of access to mental health support, life skills, vocational training, and more. Al-Ayn has several completed projects and others under construction. Housing complexes have already been built in various locations and now provide warmth and safety to hundreds of families. Many more homes are being built where needed, most thanks to your support. The Luminous Stars Centre is a flagship project built to provide safe spaces for the provision of vocational training and mental health services. Providing such services gifts the children with life skills and the opportunity for them to become active contributors to their families and their communities. Various other Sadaqah Jariyah projects exist, like the Hikayati Centre for personal development, education and recreation. The Hikayati program has also been developed to be able to serve and empower both orphan children at every stage of their lives and their widowed mothers too. Further projects are also under construction, including those that provide sustainable income like the Shajara Towa project, which also includes vocational training and mental health services, and much more. Join us to find out about the current opportunities and help build better futures for orphan children today.
Due to the decades of war and instability worsened by the current global crisis, medical care in Iraq is often unaffordable to orphan children in poverty. That is why Al-Ayn provides all children and their guardians with access to free medical care. This includes setting up medical and dental clinics at some Al-Ayn offices, arranging free scans, as well as providing medication and operations. This has included major surgeries and cancer treatments, with tens of thousands of free treatments provided to date, many of which were carried out by volunteer healthcare professionals on the ground and globally. During the pandemic, the medical care provision expanded beyond orphan children and covered all those in need, with tons of specialized medical equipment and masks being distributed to medical centers and hospitals across Iraq. When you support our medical care program, you are ensuring every child continues to have access to medical care throughout their childhood. To find out more about our current medical projects and how you can support, please do get in touch.
A right to an equal playing field. What does this mean for children after loss? Many children across Iraq are suffering from their lack of access to education. Sadly, local schools are often not equipped to providing the necessary support. Class sizes of children we met were sometimes up to 60 children, and for others, the nearest school could be miles away. With travel costs being so expensive, mothers often borrowed in order to cover travel expenses alone. One child described that her wish was that it would one day reach her turn to be chosen to read in class. She explained the size of the class was so large there was never enough time to cover everyone. For these challenges are where people like you step in. Through Al-Ayn, orphan children are given the opportunity to achieve their potential. They are encouraged to stay in school and supported to do so. Every child of school age is given free school uniforms, school bags, and stationery. Children who are struggling in particular subjects are offered free tuition via volunteer teachers, and others who are doing well are encouraged to maintain their progress through financial incentives. During the pandemic, education suffered even further, with the technology gap being one of many new challenges. That is why we need your support more than ever. If you believe like we do in the importance of a level playing field for all children, in spite of their loss and poverty, do help us continue to provide these services today.
Ramadan can be a blessed time for families and communities to unite,
to share meals and prayers in their home.
It's time to reflect upon the bounties you have blessed with,
so we can remember those who do not have all the luxuries in life.
They do not have proper suhoor meals ready available each day, or a loving father who calls them for the iftar meal after prayer. This Ramadan, let's share our blessings by giving an iftar meal to those in need, especially the orphans.
Provide a food basket for their family for around a week.
Or better yet, sponsor an orphan to help build a strong community and to help put a smile on orphans' faces.
When an orphan cries, it's like their tears fall in the hands of Allah.
Let's make sure this Ramadan, no orphan sheds a tear.
Allah, Allah, Allah,
Allah.
Allah.
Allah fi alaykum.
Allah hilaytum.
orphan children are already suffering from loss. Sadly, many also face a life in poverty. When you sponsor a child, you're not only lifting them out of poverty, but also giving them a chance to fulfill their potential and rebuild their life despite their loss and poverty. There is a fixed minimum standard amount given to every child with 0% taken from your donation for administrative fees. The guardian of the child receives this financial support on a monthly basis and spends it on the child's basic needs. Alongside the financial aid you are providing the child, Al-Ayn monitors the child on a regular basis, ensuring they are receiving the care that they need. Al-Ayn also gives children access to free medical and educational care, mental health support, housing support, and much more. Once the child begins to transition into adulthood, the support continues through extra financial support, through university and beyond. For other orphaned youth, vocational opportunities are also provided, giving them a brighter future despite their difficult past. Help us reach more orphan children in poverty today.
Sadaqah Jariyah is continual charity that addresses urgent needs today whilst also transforming lives for years to come. Due to the impact of consecutive wars and instability, many orphan children are suffering from unsafe housing, lack of access to mental health support, life skills, vocational training, and more. Al-Ayn has several completed projects and others under construction. Housing complexes have already been built in various locations and now provide warmth and safety to hundreds of families. Many more homes are being built where needed, most thanks to your support. The Luminous Stars Centre is a flagship project built to provide safe spaces for the provision of vocational training and mental health services. Providing such services gives the children with life skills and the opportunity for them to become active contributors to their families and their communities. Various other Sadaqah Jariyah projects exist, like the Hikayati Centre for personal development, education and recreation. The Hikayati program has also been developed to be able to serve and empower both orphan children at every stage of their lives and their widowed mothers too. Further projects are also under construction, including those that provide sustainable income like the Shajara Towa project, which also includes vocational training and mental health services, and much more. Join us to find out about the current opportunities and help build better futures for orphan children today.
Due to the decades of war and instability worsened by the current global crisis, medical care in Iraq is often unaffordable to orphan children in poverty. That is why Al-Ayn provides all children and their guardians with access to free medical care. This includes setting up medical and dental clinics at some Al-Ayn offices, arranging free scans, as well as providing medication and operations. This has included major surgeries and cancer treatments, with tens of thousands of free treatments provided to date, many of which were carried out by volunteer healthcare professionals on the ground and globally. During the pandemic, the medical care provision expanded beyond orphan children and covered all those in need, with tons of specialized medical equipment and masks being distributed to medical centers and hospitals across Iraq. When you support our medical care program, you are ensuring every child continues to have access to medical care throughout their childhood. To find out more about our current medical projects and how you can support, please do get in touch.
A right to an equal playing field. What does this mean for children after loss? Many children across Iraq are suffering from their lack of access to education. Sadly, local schools are often not equipped to providing the necessary support. Class sizes of children we met were sometimes up to 60 children, and for others, the nearest school could be miles away. With travel costs being so expensive, mothers often borrowed in order to cover travel expenses alone. One child described that her wish was that it would one day reach her turn to be chosen to read in class. She explained the size of the class was so large there was never enough time to cover everyone. For mothers, the only solution to ensure children do not fall behind is to seek extra tuition, yet another extortionate expense. These challenges are where people like you step in. Through Al-Ayn, orphan children are given the opportunity to achieve their potential. They are encouraged to stay in school and supported to do so. Every child of school age is given free school uniforms, school bags, and stationery. Children who are struggling in particular subjects are offered free tuition via volunteer teachers, and others who are doing well are encouraged to maintain their progress through financial incentives. During the pandemic, education suffered even further, with the technology gap being one of many new challenges. That is why we need your support more than ever. If you believe like we do in the importance of a level playing field for all children, in spite of their loss and poverty, do help us continue to provide these services today.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us in our Fidya and Kaffara program. Inshallah, we will begin with a recitation of the Holy Quran. Please welcome Brother Ammar Ali Drani with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad in your own homes. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحاقة ما الحاقة وما أدراك ما الحاقة كذبت ثمود وعاد بالقارعة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحاقة ما الحاقة وما أدراك ما الحاقة كذبت ثمود وعاد بالقارعة. فأما ثمود فأهلكوا بالطاغية وأما عاد فأهلكوا بريح صرصر عاتية سخرها عليهم 7 ليال و8 أيام
وثمانية أيام حسوما فترى القوم فيها سرعى كأنهم أعجاز نخل خاوية فهل ترى لهم من باقية وجاء فرعون ومن قبله والمؤتفكات بالخاطئة فعصوا رسول ربهم فأخذهم أخذة رابية صدق الله العلي العظيم. الفاتحة.
Thank you, Brother Ammar. Jazakallah for this beautiful recitation. Once again, welcome and thank you for joining this Fidya and Kaffara program. We will take you through a quick update on the work that Al-Ayn is carrying out, and then we'll go in towards the main portion of the program. This is the agenda, which you can see. We've had a recitation by Brother Ammar. We'll go through a presentation by myself, and then we will pass on to Maulana Sayyid Muhammad Rizvi to go through the program, and then we can take your questions, inshallah. And then we will have Dua Faraj and Ziyarah at the end. As you know, decades of war, of conflict, of instability have led to many people living in poverty in Iraq. And sadly, those who are worst hit and worst impacted by this are the orphan children. Normally, in a society which relies on the father figure to be the breadwinner, once the father figure is lost, these families struggle. Since its inception, Al-Ayn has sponsored and cared for over 110,000 orphaned children across Iraq. And today, the number of children who are being supported and empowered and lifted out of poverty exceeds 64,000 children. To put that number into perspective, I just want to concentrate on the number to give you an idea about the level of support, the professional nature of the work of Al-Ayn, meaning that all these children are continuously being provided with support. And Al-Ayn just celebrated its 15th birthday in Iraq, and not a single month has passed without these children with delays in the children receiving their support or being empowered to make sure that they have the best chance possible to overcome the difficult start to their lives. When we say comprehensive care, we don't just mean by providing a financial amount. We don't just mean by thinking about their little things here and there. Everything is considered, from the financial aid to providing food support to medical care, continuing on to psychological rehabilitation, educational support, vocational training, housing, and much, much more. When a child is encompassed into the program of Al-Ayn, so every single one of the 64,000 children who are being empowered today have all of these various aspects of their well-being catered for. Obviously, a key portion of this, or a key part of this support, is the financial aid which is distributed to the orphaned children. This is equivalent to about £55 a month, or 100 Canadian dollars. And this amount was agreed on based on a study which Al-Ayn conducted, which was needed to determine the minimum amount needed to lift a child out of poverty. Brothers and sisters, when we speak about the opportunity for you to become a sponsor of a child, we mean the sponsor, inshallah, in the full capacity of being a sponsor, with all the rewards and the benefits, inshallah, in your akhirah of becoming a sponsor. And to become this sponsor, you must be caring for all their needs, such that they are no longer in need to ask for help from anywhere else. And this is why Al-Ayn's comprehensive care package is so complete and well-rounded. There's also food aid, as we mentioned earlier. Just during the COVID pandemic, the first wave, over 164,000 food parcels were delivered across Iraq. And what was special about this is that it ensured that Al-Ayn was contributing towards ensuring the virus was not spreading, and was also supporting those families most impoverished, most vulnerable, who would rely on their daily earnings to be able to survive. And Al-Ayn ensured that these families were supported. This photo is just an example to show you the level Al-Ayn staff were willing to, or the effort they put in to make sure everyone was reached in terms of providing the support for these families. Again, there's medical care. Many of these children live in or start their lives living in suboptimal conditions. They suffer from medical conditions. Many of them are things that you and I would see as fairly simple, but the reality is that many of these children would not have access to these medical care or medical support which they are in need of in order for them to help them overcome their troubles. So Al-Ayn ensures that this support is provided to these children, in addition to additional, more complex, more complicated interventions as well, such that over 60,000 courses of treatment have been provided, many of them within Iraq. And if there is a need, Al-Ayn also covers the costs and supports these families to receive their medical interventions outside Iraq as well. Again, there's also psychological rehabilitation, and this is an area that I'm particularly I was particularly impressed by when I first heard of Al-Ayn myself. Of course, these children are living in poverty. Of course, that's how they start their life. Of course, they are in need of support. Of course, they are in need of shelter and food and financial support. But sadly, many of them have witnessed losing their loved ones in the most traumatic and the most gruesome way. And it's very important, and this is what I mean by well-rounded support. These children are not just supported to make sure that they have dignified clothes on and have good food that they can eat and have a roof over their heads, but also their mental health is considered. Many of them, like I said, have witnessed losing their loved ones, and it's very important that we recognize in the societies that we are, in the societies that they grow up in, this topic is a bit of a taboo, and Al-Ayn has been fighting this taboo within society to encourage children and the mothers and their wider families to open up and speak and ask for help should they need help, to help them cope with the struggles that they have faced early on in their lives. Again, there's also educational support. And Al-Ayn's, I keep going back to this theme of well-rounded, comprehensive support. The educational support means that there are after-school classes to support these children. There are additional budgets which are spent to support children in tuition if they are in need of it. And sponsorship continues until graduation. So Al-Ayn does everything in its power to ensure that children continue with their education, and that their financial situation isn't the reason which will stop them from continuing on. The photo on the right is Ayat, a third or fourth year medical student now, who was a child sponsored by Al-Ayn, who was one of those who were academically talented, and she's continuing to excel in her life. And she's one of many examples we are very proud of, and we hope that we can provide opportunities for all the orphan children to maximize the potential they choose and the path that they choose to pursue in their lives. Again, we know that mainstream education isn't the answer, isn't the solution, or isn't the only way to make a living or to guide you in the way you want to live your life. And Al-Ayn recognized this and set up Luminous Stars Centers. These are called Marakiz al-Anjum al-Zahira, or Markaz al-Anjum al-Zahira, the Luminous Stars Center. And this project or center has vocational training workshops which train orphaned youth, both boys and girls, with skills such that they can then look after themselves, earn a living for themselves, and stand on their own 2 feet and support their own families as well. Al-Ayn is present on the ground in Iraq, across Iraq, over 200 locations within Iraq. But in addition to that, has offices in the UK, in Canada, in America, across Europe, in Australia, all serving the orphaned children in need of this support. Now, this vast network, this vast structure of support that's been provided to support orphan children is done through the support and blessings of Sayyid Sistani, and also which part of this support means that all the running costs of Al-Ayn are covered by the office of Sayyid Sistani, meaning that 100% of your donations reach those in need. There is nothing deducted for admin fees. In addition to that, Al-Ayn has permission to receive religious dues such as khums, zakat, adhiyah, again, and this is all to be spent on the children, the orphan children. Now, you can order your sadaqah box wherever you may be following us from this and during this program. And these boxes, as you know, have a unique quality in that money placed into them count as sadaqah maqboodha, or received sadaqah. As you know, there are many rewards and benefits of giving sadaqah, and in order to achieve this quality or the status of sadaqah, the money you give needs to reach the hand of the needy person you are giving sadaqah to. Where we are living in the West, this may be difficult if we know that the hadith of push away calamity with sadaqah, cure your ill with sadaqah. And for us, if we want this urgent intervention, this urgent additional rahmah, blessing from Allah, it may be difficult for us to give sadaqah. And this box is unique in that it's equivalent to the needy hand. So it's arguably more important for the donor than the support it provides to the orphan children through the financial support that it provides to them. Now, we know that it may be difficult these days with the pandemic and lockdown to have spare change sometimes, and we have thought about this and developed apps that you can use to download and give sadaqah within a few taps. So these are QR codes for those of you who are not familiar with it. If you place your camera, if you point your phone camera towards the screen now and scan the relevant QR code, it will take you to the screen, to the website link, which will allow you to download the app. Once you've set it up for the first time, it's very, very easy to use. You can give sadaqah whenever you want, instantly, and it's a good way to make sure that you are continuously supporting those in need of support. Now, Al-Ayn, obviously this is a Fidya and Kaffara event. Al-Ayn is authorized to receive Fidya and Kaffara payments, and you can see the details on the screen in front of you. You can check the respective websites for more information, and you can also donate and give your Fidya and Kaffara on these websites directly. In terms of our upcoming events, next week we'll have a Fidya and Kaffara seminar in the Arabic language, so similar to this program but in Arabic. So please do keep a lookout on our social media pages if you'd like to register or join to find out about more details about this in Arabic, inshallah. Thank you for listening during this program, and I'd like to pass on to Brother Wahid for the second part, the main part of the program, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Salamun alaikum, dear brothers and sisters in Iman, both in Canada and the UK. I pray that you are all doing well, inshallah. And I hope that, inshallah, that you're all keeping healthy and are in good health and wherever you are in the world, inshallah. Thank you so much for taking the time from your busy schedule and coming to this program. I know it's a busy time for you guys, and taking that extra time to come to our program is really appreciated, and I hope you benefit from it. Before I introduce our dear scholar, I just wanted to let you guys know that, inshallah, Ramadan is coming. Please make sure on your iftar tables and your sahar table there is a space for the orphans, and you're always supporting and giving towards the orphans, inshallah. And Allah will reward you for your well intentions, inshallah. I want to introduce to you one of the founding fathers of Al-Ayn Canada, one of the a scholar that everyone respects around the world, and he's very dear and to my heart, Sayyid Maulana Muhammad Rizvi, who was born in India, raised in Tanzania, and currently works here, resides here in Canada. He's had many publications, 15 different publications, including explanatory translation of the Holy Quran in 6 volumes, Marriage and Morals in Islam, and Making an Islamic Will. He currently resides as an alim in the Jaffrey Community Center here in Toronto. He's also a very well-respected scholar in Toronto as a representative of Sayyid Sistani, and we refer majority of our support and questions to him. He's extremely available for the orphans and always there to support orphans everywhere around the world. Assalamu alaikum, dear Sayyid Muhammad Rizvi.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Honor to have you, Shaykhana.
You're welcome. Thank you for the kind words. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept the hard work of all the brothers who are working for this path of elevating the status of the orphans, bringing them to a level where they can have a dignified life, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much for I just want to let the sisters and brothers know while the Sayyid Rizvi is speaking, you can ask your questions on Menti and using the code 17589204. It's in the bottom of the screen. You can ask your questions, and the Q&A session will raise your question to Maulana, inshallah. Sayyidina, Bismillah.
You made me the host so I can share the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله الطاهرين. Dear brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are getting very close to the month of Ramadan, and the brothers at Al-Ayn, Canada, wanted to have a program talking about the issues regarding Fidya, Kaffara, and the issue of, qada prayers. So we are not really going into the details of fasting as such, but concentrating on these issues as far as qada and Fidya and Kaffara are concerned. And so my discussion here or talk will not be that elaborate. But let me begin as a blessing from the verse of the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. It's a very beautiful way of, talking. He says, "O you who believe," this is a respectable way by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing us. Doesn't even just say, ayyuhan nas. He says, ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, the people who have iman. So you already are elevated on that level. Kutiba alaykum as-siyam, that fasting has been made obligatory on you. And this is referring to the fasting of the month of Ramadan, as if to answer a question which would be in the mind of the people before even raising it, that, why us, the last ummah, imposed with fasting? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then responds there, as it was, made obligatory on those who were before you. And so if you look at Christianity, if you look at Judaism, and I think almost all religions, in one form or another, they have this tradition of fasting. In Judaism, it's more similar. In Christianity, it was there actually, especially when they talk about the Lent period in their own calendar. Unfortunately, the tradition of fasting among the Christian community is going down and down. But the reality is there that, even these revealed religions before had this tradition of fasting introduced by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their own holy books. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't think that I have singled you out for this, hard task of fasting in the month of Ramadan. You are like any other ummah, and you also have to go through it. And very beautifully, he ends the ayat with two words, which summarizes the philosophy of fasting. Why do we do this? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he uses the word la'alla. La'alla is used when the speaker would like to express his expectation. Hopefully you will, acquire or build on this righteousness, taqwa within yourself. And that's where we come to realize that, when we talk about fasting is not only losing few pounds at the end of the month, although that doesn't happen, with the elaborate iftar that we have, and then the sahar at the end, that part of fasting is gone. Some people actually end up gaining in the month of Ramadan. But the main purpose of fasting is not dieting. The main purpose of fasting is لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may acquire this taqwa. What is taqwa? Taqwa is this ability to control our own desires, our emotions. And one of the most important issue is when we talk about shahwa, the desire that we have, not only on the level of, physical desire that we talk about, but you will see that this love for wealth, hubbul mal, this is a very strong desire in everyone. From children, even in their infancy, they have, oh, this is my toy. This is where you see the instinct is there. Things belong to me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will see even in the ayat of birr, where he says, لَيْسَ الْبِرْ, birr is not turning to the right and the left. After Iman, the very first thing he says, I would like to see your commitment in my belief by sharing what I have given to you. So birr and taqwa is demonstrated practically by giving up something that you have from the mal that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to you. And this is where charity comes in. We are not even talking about what is wajib in khums and zakat, for example, or other things. We are talking about voluntary charity, khairat, sadaqat. And that's the sign in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of taqwa and birr, to be able to control our desires and share what Allah has given to us with لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ, for those who are, beggars and deprived. And one way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does this, besides the wajib dues that we have to pay, is by, looking at things that we miss out in our obligation. Whether it is fasting or other kind of, violations in Hajj, for example, there are different kinds of kaffarat. Kaffarat means fine. And this is where Allah says, okay, now this is one way that I would like to see how you give up a portion of your mal and your wealth for the poor and the needy. This is where I come to this issue of Fidya and Kaffara. And so it's all connected to the purpose of fasting, which is to have this control over our desires and our emotions. And so, I didn't want to go into detail as far as the rulings of fasting are concerned. MashaAllah, people in our community are well versed about these issues. But just some important points just to lay the ground for the basics. Let's start with, the question that, who are the people on whom fasting is wajib in the month of Ramadan? Well, it is wajib on a Muslim, number one, a Muslim who has reached to the age of bulugh, baligh or baligha. And so anyone who is under that age, it's not wajib. Number 2, that they should be aqil. Aqil means they should be of sound mind. And there is a long discussion. What does it mean? Because you have aqil, opposite of that is majnoon. So how do you define it? Well, basically, we are talking about somebody who has difficulty. The most simple way, even in the classical works like Sheikh Tusi and others, unfortunately, our present ulama, they very easily write that, for example, for the wujub of fasting, you had to be Muslim, you had to be baligh, you had to be aqil in many places. But they do not really go and define what does aqil mean. One of the good descriptions that I've seen in the earlier books, people like Sheikh Tusi rahmatullah alayhi, almost 1,000 years ago, they actually say somebody who has lost the sense of time. If you're going to ask them, is this afternoon or is it morning? Is today Sunday or Saturday? If they are not able to answer that, in a normal way, then it means that they don't really have that mental capacity. They are not of sound mind. And interestingly, talking with some of the doctor friends that we have, they said actually one of the first things they look for in a person, whether he is mentally of sound mind or not, they say, what date is today? Or what day is today? Or what is the timing now? And so it's interesting that what our classical books talk about is also considered to be a common, a simple way of knowing whether a person is of sound mind or not. So those who are mentally challenged would be exempted from fasting. And then we come to the third condition, that a person should not be a traveler. I will come to details later on. So a traveler, a person has to be muqim, a resident at your own place in your own city. And number 4, the most important one, a person should be physically a healthy person. And that is an important element. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not impose any duty on a person who is not able to handle it physically. This is out of the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the ayat that we have in Surah Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he talks about this issue of fasting, very clearly when he talks about man kana maridan ala safarin, somebody who is not, who is marid, ill, or he is traveling, فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ, then he doesn't have to fast in the month of Ramadan. He will do the fasting later on. Do qada. Why? يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would like to see yusr, easiness for you. He doesn't want to see putting you into, extraordinary hardship and difficulty. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically, even when it comes to the issue of fasting, it's a very logical and very humane way of, handling it. And therefore, there are some people, because of this physical health is an important condition, there are some people who are actually exempted from it. The elderly people who cannot physically fast, or those who are temporarily ill, somebody who is going through fever, for example, or has infection, needs to drink liquid more frequently, for example. So when they are going through the temporary phase, they are also exempted those days from fasting. And even those who are going through long-term, illness, somebody who is diabetic, that person is required to eat more frequently, and they will not be able to stay the entire day from Fajr to Maghrib without eating. Otherwise, they will have problem with their sugar level, and it could be detrimental to their health. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want usr and difficulty for anyone. And of course, then we talk about the pregnant woman during that term of pregnancy. If she realizes that by fasting, it would be harmful for the development of the baby, then she also during that stage is exempted. Of course, they have to do qada later on. And similarly, we have the issue of nursing mother. That if they think that by fasting, because it's the mother who needs to eat, keep herself healthy and strong in order to feed the baby. And if she is not, fulfilling her nutritional, needs, then the baby would suffer. And if that's the situation, even during that nursing period, fasting is exempted. Of course, they have to do qada later on. So the reason I mention all this is just to have an overview of, who are the people on whom it's obligatory, who are exempted. And you will see it has mostly to do with the issue of, physical health. And this actually brings us to this issue of what is fidya, how is it related to the issue of qada, and what is kaffara. So just let us look at some of these three words, so we have clarity before I come to the details there. Qada basically means to make up for a missed prayer, whether it was missed out for a genuine excuse, a person was not feeling well that day, or out of negligence. A person didn't really care about it. So they have to do qada. Of course, they have to do even more than that, but we'll come to that later on. So qada basically refers to making up the missed fasting. Fidya, and this is important to realize, the difference between fidya and kaffara. Fidya is a compensation. It's not a punishment. It is a compensation to be paid for fasts which were missed due to valid reasons. And we'll come to the details later on. So as opposed to fidya, you have, fidya basically is 750 grams of rice or flour or any staple food used in that region. So it could be what do you call khurma, dates, let's say in Iraq, or it could be, you go to some of the countries where lentils are more easily available or maize is more easily available, so it depends on where you are. So rice and flour are mentioned as a most common entity, but any staple food would be good enough. It should be staple food, not good. Okay. Per day of the missed fast. And this has to be given to a Shia Muslim who is needy and poor. Only when we don't have somebody who is a Shia Muslim, then we can give it to a non-Shia Muslim, provided that Muslim doesn't have this bughd and hatred towards the Ahlul Bayt. Now this 750 gram of the grain per day is the minimum standard for fidya. However, it's recommended that you make it double, 1.5 kilo. So suppose you have a situation of somebody who is not able to fast for the whole month because of, let's say, he or she is diabetic. So 30 days. So that person has to pay fidya, and 1 month's fidya would be 22.5 kilo based on 750 grams per day. Based on recommendation, it becomes 45 kilo. So one guni or sake or bag of rice or flour of that amount would be sufficient. The important issue is that when it comes to fidya, people say, okay, how many dollars I have to pay? Well, you had to pay the dollar here, for example, but remember that at the end, the fidya, when it reaches to the deserving poor person, has to reach there in kind, not in dollar form. It has to be given in kind. So wherever you're giving, and even the organizations who take on this responsibility, they have to make sure that the money that they received is used to buy the staple food and given to the poor and needy. This is not like sadaqah, or not even like fitra, which is different. You can just give the money to the poor and the needy. But when it comes to fidya, it has to be given in kind. Now, as opposed to fidya, you have kaffara. What is kaffara? Fidya is compensation for the missed prayers for good reasons, justified reasons. Whereas kaffara is a fine. It's a penalty to be paid for the fast that you have missed due to invalid reasons, negligence, didn't really care about it, just felt hungry and so went to eat. Well, that's not acceptable, and that's where you have to do qada, and then also you have to pay fine. And when you talk about fine here, remember now, it is 750 grams of the staple food per day for the missed fast, multiplied by 60 to be paid to the needy Shia Muslim. So for one day, you had to pay 45 kilo of rice or flour or a staple food. So there's a big difference. There you have 750 grams per day. You have 45 kilo per day in kaffara. So when you talk about fidya and when you talk about kaffara, these are completely two different categories. And so it's important to realize your own situation there, and then you decide accordingly. Again, it must be given in kind, just like fidya. Now we come to the main details about it, and this is where I'll then end the discussion and open up for question answers. This is based on the book I have, Fasting in Ramadan. It's available for free download in this website you see on the screen. It talks about all different issues, the legal, spiritual dimension, and even the rules about it. So this is best. This is a chart based on what I have in the book. So let us look at all these different situations as far as fidya and kaffara and qada is concerned. Number one, if a person is not able to fast because of old age, an age where he cannot fast at all, even if he tries, because they are feeble, weak, maybe over 80, for example, and I just an example, there might be people who are 80 and very healthy and active. Don't want to say you are feeble, no, but this is an example. We look at the norm. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not put a burden on anyone more than their capacity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks for yusr, not usr. He wants to make your life easy, not difficult. If you don't have the capacity, this is very important. If you don't have the capacity to do fast on a physical level, you are exempted. So there is no qada on that person because of old age there. There is no fidya to be paid. And of course, there would be no kaffara. Then you come to the same category of old people, old age, where a person can fast. Maybe if he tries or she tries, they might be able to do it, but they will be doing it with difficulty. In this case, and because of that difficulty, in the first case, it was not even within their capacity. In the second one, there is, but it is with difficulty, mashaqqa. And you know, it's, and that's where in their case, then it is recommended that, of course, they will not fast. There is no qada for them. There is no kaffara issue, but this is where the fidya comes in. That they pay 750 gram per day. So for the entire month, it will be 22.5 kilo of rice or flour, or if they want to double it, 45 kilos for the benefit of the poor and the needy. Then you come to the situation where a person did not fast because of temporary illness. He had fever or severe cold or infection or, other temporary issues. Then what they have to do? Number one, they have to do qada after the month of Ramadan. And they have to do that qada within that year, before next Ramadan. If they are able to do it within a year, then that's the only thing they have to do. They will do the qada, they will make it up that missed fast because of temporary illness, and they have fulfilled their duty. But if they do not do the qada within then 1 year, and this next Ramadan comes in, and they have not done the qaza for missing out because of temporary illness, then now the fidya will kick in. So if it is done, the qada is done after a year, then besides the qada, that person has also to pay fidya. Of course, no kaffara will apply there. Then we talk about long-term illness. Somebody, for example, going through diabetic or other, illness where the medications are such that they have to use them, during with regularity, that they will not be able to stay without it or without food and drink from Fajr to Maghrib. In this case, of course, there is no qada for them. They will miss the fast. There is no qada. There is no kaffara, of course, because they didn't violate anything here. It was not a sin. But they have to pay fidya. Then we come to the case of a lady who is pregnant or a lady who is nursing a child. This is where we come to the issue of qada as well as fidya. Of course, there is no question of kaffara there because it's not their fault, it's not a sin. And so it's only qada that they have to do, and they have to pay the fidya for it. Of course, if they were able to do the qada before next Ramadan, let's say the child is weaned 6 months after the month of Ramadan. So they had this remaining 6 months before next Ramadan to do the qada. And if they didn't do it, then their fidya will become double. Means there is qada and fidya for missing out for feeding time. But if they were not able to do the qada within that 1 year, then of course the fidya would be doubled there. Man kana ala safarin, Quran says, man kana maridan aw ala safar. Allah gives us this convenience. If you are not feeling well or if you are traveling, don't fast in the month of Ramadan. Fast, after that. And so just a brief description about it. For example, if you're traveling, on that day of traveling, if you start before Zuhr time, then that day's fast is invalid. You have to do qada. And traveling in Ramadan is not a sin. It is not one of the muftirat. And so you are allowed to travel if you want to. However, what you have to do if you travel before Zuhr for that day, you have to do qada later on, and there is no fidya or kaffara. However, if you travel after Zohr and that day, that day's fast would be valid. You will fast normally, and there's no question of Fidya and Kaffara for that day. You reach to your destination and you stay there less than 10 days. You are a traveler there, you are a musafir. If you stay there for less than 10 days, you don't fast, you will have to do qadha later on. There is no fidya or kaffara for, not doing the fast because of traveling. As I said, traveling is not one of the muftirat, and it's not haram in the month of Ramadan. However, if you reach to your destination and you want to stay there for 10 days or more, then you will fast in that at your destination normally. And of course, when you do that normally, there is no issue of fidya or kaffara. If you are a frequent traveler, if your job is traveling, you are a pilot or a truck driver, then you are a frequent traveler, provided your job involves traveling for at least 4 months of the year, not continuously, but totally in the year. If you see that the total time of your journey for this business that you have or the work of traveling, if it is 4 months, then you are kathiru safar, you are frequent traveler, and you will fast normally even when you are traveling. So a pilot or a truck driver in transportation, even though they will be traveling, but they will fast. Finally, we come to the case of a person who is not fasting, not because they were old or they were temporarily ill or they had a long-term illness or they were pregnant or nursing a child or traveling. No excuse, negligence, careless, about the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then 2 things will apply. Number 1, qadha, and number 2, kaffara. And we talked about, the kaffara earlier. And so, inshallah, this will give you an idea of, how this issue of qadha and fidya and kaffara works, all in one place, inshallah. And you can get this chart if you download the book, Fasting in Ramadan, from the website that you see there on the screen. I'll conclude here, and, it's maybe we can open up for question answers now.
Thank you so much, Maulana Rizvi. That was beautiful. Well said. So I do have many questions coming through, so I'll ask them. I'll go straight to them. Should a patient who know he will not fast in the coming month of Ramadan, can he give his fidya starting on the beginning of Ramadan?
Yes, they can do that. Although the fasting has not started, so the obligation comes later on, but they can still give it. Kind of like fitra, many times it is given in advance, especially here in Western countries, so it can be given to the poor people in other areas. Where basically, I think just to be on the path of precaution, you just do the niyyat that you are giving this as a loan to the mustahaq, and once the days pass by, you can just do the niyyat that what I was given out is the fidya. Yeah.
So I'm making up my kasha ruzas from my pregnancy 9 years ago, as well as others I've missed up till this year. How do I calculate that? How should I pay it? So if they've missed it more than a few years have passed, does the interest increase or?
No, they will have to do the qadha. So the numbers they would know if it was for pregnancy or feeding. So they will do the qadha and they would pay fidya, but the fidya would be doubled.
Oh, okay.
It wouldn't just multiply on and on. Only twice. That's it.
Okay, so then the fidya would not be 1.5 kilos a day, it would be 3 kilos a day.
If you go with the maximum recommended number, it could be 750 gram, but 2 would be 1.5 also. So it depends whether you're looking at a minimum number or maximum recommendation.
So if somebody has obligatory fast that they didn't accomplish through that 1 year before the next month of Ramadan, can they fast any mustahab fast, or would they have to do their obligatory fast first?
According to Ayatollah Sistani, if you have qadha fast on you, you can't do mustahab and sunnat fast. For example, 15 Shaban came, or 27th Rajab came, or other days, Ghadir. So if you have qadha, what you should do is on that day, do the niyat of qadha. But right in your heart, you have that, oh Allah, I wanted to fast because it is a recommended day, but I have qadha, so I'm doing the qadha. Allah, out of His mercy, will accept this also and give you the sawab for the mustahab also.
So that would be 2 for 1.
The niyyat has to be that is qadha.
Perfect. That would actually benefit 2 for 1 kind of.
Yeah.
Does fidya need to be paid annually until the qadha for a fast is made up? For example, if a pregnant lady is unable to fast and pay fidya for the year, does she need to pay it again every year?
No, the fidya can be given on that same year, and she will do it. Means the qadha fasting and the fidya doesn't have to go hand in hand as far as the time is concerned. So you can pay the fidya before and do the qadha later on.
What should I do if I don't know how many days of kaffara I need to pay?
There is unfortunately no magical number. None of the fuqaha or the sources that we have, hadith, don't say, okay, do this number and that's. You will have to figure it out yourself and at least find the minimum number that you will be comfortable with that and then work around it.
Okay. So can they guess estimate or like a good estimate themselves?
Yeah, I mean, they have to do the estimation based on their own, situation and how they feel. They have to basically answer their own conscience about it. Feel comfortable that, okay, I fulfilled my duty.
Somebody's asking, I think this goes more towards the doctor's recommendation, but you tell us, Sayyid, now, my dad is on oxygen. Can he fast?
If oxygen has become a normal part of his life, it doesn't really bother him, there are no other medications to be taken during the daytime, or if they can be, timed in such a way that is taken at night time, then yes, the person can fast. Basically, it is the individual's judgment. It's not a doctor's decision.
Okay.
Whether you can fast or not.
So you mentioned this in your lecture, but I think they're asking it. Does the fidya and kaffara only go to Shias? You mentioned first Shias and then others, right?
Yes, it has to go. Initially, you should look for a Shia faqir, poor and needy person. But if you cannot find a deserving Shia, then you can give it to other Muslims. Provided they are not, they don't have this hatred towards the Ahlul Bayt. Yes.
An audience is asking, a recent Imam post mentioned that a breastfeeding mother cannot abandon the fast if she has an option to feed formula to the baby by obligatory precaution. What does Sayyid Sistani say about that?
Well, I think you see the question, the ruling, the way it has been mentioned is correct, but you have to realize that, you know, the main thing is that if the mother who is feeding the baby stops doing this, it's going to be harmful for the child. Now, when we talk about a darar and harm, it's of different kinds. You know, maybe a child will not be able to handle formula that easily. You know, so it's a very relative term. So I cannot say that any mother who can bottle feed the baby she's not exempted from fasting. No, if you have a situation where you realize that, especially the nutrition which comes from the mother's milk, and Islam also recommends that compared to the formula. And if that is more important, it might have a long-term, you know, implication, then feeding the baby would be okay, and that would be an exemption for fasting.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is going outside the Fidya Kaffara. It's more about Zakatul Fitr. They're asking, there's two types, the Sahm Sadat and Sahm non-Sayyid. The question is, if I am Sayyid and my wife is not, should I pay two for Sadat or one Sadat and one
You see, when we have, what we have in the centers these days here is we have one box for Fitra for Sadat and one for non-Sadat. Why do we have that two boxes? We have it that so that if a Sayyid is giving the Fitra on behalf of himself and his family, it is the head of the family who is the giving. So let's say he is Sayyid. You know, his wife might not be Sayyid, but it is the Sayyid who is giving on behalf of himself and his family. They will put it in the box of Sadat, because the Fitra of non-Sayyid cannot be used for a poor Sayyid. That's why we have separate boxes. You know, so, but because in this case that you mentioned the question, it is the head of the family whose designation you have to see whether he's Sayyid or non-Sayyid. Dependents don't matter.
This goes back to one of the answer questions you answered, but just confirming, if a woman didn't fast when she was supposed to fast for missed pregnancy for the period of 7 years after, with no legitimate reason for the delay, does she have to pay Fidya times 7? You said multiplied by 2 max, right? No.
She has to do qadha, and the Fidya would be twice.
Fidya would be twice. Yeah. When I was 9 years old, I was fasting in Ramadan, but one day I got hungry and I ate something I had temptation for food. I am thinking that how should I do the qadha? Is that 1 day or 6 days?
Looking at the age, I would say, you know, it was not really done, what I would say, willfully. So just qadha would be okay. You know, sometimes the children at that age might be baligh, girls especially, but they might not be fully mature in that way. So if it happens in that way, they just do qadha only once. They don't have to do 60 times, no.
If it was an adult, you'd say you would have a different answer, right?
Yeah, if they're adult, then yes, then the kaffara would apply, definitely.
If a fast is missed due to negligence and qadha is not made up within a year, does Fidya also apply in addition to kaffara, and if so, how much?
Yes, in that case, you have the qadha, and you have, the one Fidya. Yeah.
Age 80 plus, unable to fast, is Fidya Wajib? You said yes, right?
If they are not able to fast at all, nothing is wajib on them.
Nothing.
No qada, no fidya, nothing. But if they are old and for them fasting is possible with difficulty, and therefore they don't fast, in that case they only do the fidya. There is no qada for them.
Now it's coming towards the questions of the money giving to organizations. Usually some charity accept cash for fidya. So is that okay in that case?
Yeah, as long as, you have to ask them just to make sure that your obligation is fulfilled, that this has to go at the end to the recipient in form of grain, not in form of money.
Like you said, kindness, right?
Yeah.
A situation. A woman who missed making up qadha from last year Ramadan 5 days due to not being able to fast.
Yeah.
Became pregnant before she could make that up. Now she will not fast during this Ramadan and has 5 days.
Okay. It depends. Whether she became pregnant soon after Ramadan, or was it they still had the time, for fasting. So if she still had the time, then she will pay fidya. Qada and fidya, yeah.
Perfect.
No kaffara. Again, I would like to clarify. Remember, the kaffara and fidya are two completely different things.
Perfect. I know, Sayyid Rizvi, you've have many programs happening, and I know that your time is very precious. So I won't take more of your time. I want to say thank you for your beautiful lecture, and we always benefit from you. And there's no way we could say thank you to you, except praying for you and praying that you're always in good health and in our community always, inshallah. Any words you want to add in regards to orphans before we close the program, inshallah?
I would just like to talk about one issue which comes up in the last few years, where they talk about the age of bulugh for the girls, and they say, you're talking about a 9-year-old girl if she cannot handle fasting physically. And yes, I sometimes get cases where they would say that, my daughter started fasting today, but she has been vomiting since afternoon. So in that case, you have to realize, again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at al-yusr, not al-usr. They might have become baligha, but if physically they cannot handle, then especially if the last few years, the Ramadan was coming in summer season, it was more challenging. Then in those kinds of situations, that girl would be exempted from fasting at that time. And there is no kaffara on her, but she has to do the qada. Maybe you as a parent then should help her to do the qada in winter, where the days are shorter and they can manage it. Maybe do it on the weekends, or every other weekend. So inshallah, in 2-3 months, she would have fulfilled her duty as far as the qada of the missed prayers are concerned. And so this is where we have to realize that sometimes people make this issue that our Sharia is so harsh. No, there are a lot of flexibilities in there. In summertime, for example, when Ramadan came, somebody who is working on the construction site for the whole day in the sun, a time comes where he cannot handle it. Well, for such a person also, the ruling is very simple. You have to start the day with fasting. It's not that you are exempted. But if a time comes, let's say at 3 in the afternoon, that you really cannot handle anymore because you are working in an open area, in a construction site where the sun is right on you, then you can drink water and your fast will be gone. Some people think, oh, can I drink a little bit and still continue? No, once you drink, it's gone. Your fast would be gone, but in this case, there is no kafara for you. You still have to make it up, later on. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to impose something on people where they don't have the capacity of handling it. So keep that in mind, and inshallah, things will be much easy. There are people in the Muslim world who actually fast Rajab, Sha'ban, Ramadan. So when it comes to the capacity on a normal level, maybe the capacity is more, but we are already told just to fast in 1 month.
So Rizvi, maybe one last question I want to ask is that if somebody is a sponsor of an orphan within any organization, including Al-Ayn, do they have to pay the
Fitra?
Yeah, at the end of Ramadan.
Yeah, I mean, if the sponsorship is full, like sometimes you say, okay, I will sponsor the education of the orphan, then he's not under your umbrella. But if you are, supporting an orphan in a comprehensive manner, everything, education, clothing, food, shelter, everything, then you will have to include that orphan as among your dependents. And then when you calculate the fitra on behalf of yourself and the dependents, that orphan would be included in there.
Sayyid, what's the sawab, and if you can recommend the sponsorships of orphan in this Ramadan, we would be honored.
I can't give you the numbers. When you do the charity work, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guarantees in the Quran, you do one good things, I will multiply the reward 10 times. But in the month of Ramadan, he says, do the same thing, I will multiply it 70 times.
Wow.
And so doing doing charity, sadaqat, sponsoring an orphan or a poor during the month of Ramadan has more thawab and merit, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you, Sayyid Rizvi, for your time.
Okay, inshallah.
Brothers and sisters, that brings us into the Q&A session with Maulana Rizvi. Before we go into Dua Faraj and Ziyarat, I'd like to ask everyone to make sure that this Ramadan you have a space in your iftar table for the orphans, and you're definitely sponsoring an orphan or giving towards the orphans, inshallah. The links are at the bottom of the page. Please do so. Be generous, and Allah will be generous to you 70-fold in the month of Ramadan, as Sayyid Maulana Rizvi said. Again, thank you so much for your time. I'd like to ask our dear brother to come forward and recite the Dua Faraj and Ziyarat. The brother, if you go ahead.
على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم قل لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا وذليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على محمد زيارة السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا علي المرتضى السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا حسين الشهيد، السلام عليك يا علي الزين العابدين، ومحمد الباقر، وجعفر الصادق، وموسى الكاظم، وعلي الرضا، ومحمد تقي، وعلي النقي، والحسن العسكري، ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، وكعبة الإيمان، وإمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. أجل الله تعالى فرجه، وسهل الله تعالى مخرجه، وظهورا، ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سورة المباركة الفاتحة.